I am on the mission of recreating every single crazy thing Pinterest has to offer. You see, Pinterest is all about inspiration and reference. It's where dozens of people meet to talk art and, well, also complain about AI slop. Now, we've all been at least once traumatized by this thing, which is why I made it last video. Now, today, I've laid my eyes on this not too big medieval town, which, has quite a lot of detail when you take a second look at it. So, welcome to From Pinterest to Minecraft. If you got any recommendations on what I should build next, let me know, as finding these things is quite hard. But now, let's start with the video. The very first thing you build dictates the scale of everything that comes after, which makes our starting point pretty important. So where do we begin? We could start at the gate and work our way up, but that's a bit too complicated. So instead of working our way up, why don't we work our way down? You see, when analyzing this entire structure, the very top is by far the easiest part. And this big tower makes a perfect point of reference. So after building up the tower, and a little bit of that, I have now determined that the tower is 87 blocks tall. Now, one thing I love doing is replicating the same method on a painting and then using that little red tower to measure out things. Now, sadly, this method is heavily dependent on the perspective the painting was drawn in, and right here, right now, it's hardly usable. Now, I realize this because everything in my body is telling me that this cliff and this tower is basically the same height, but this thing right here is telling me that this is way bigger, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. Now, since our picture is black and white, we have the trouble of choosing a color palette. So the pink as shadows kind of works, but also really doesn't. And stone was just not the call. So now I end up with keeping the default sandstone color palette and then using endstone as highlights, which is pretty interesting, right? You don't see a lot of endstone being used, and then birch as shadows. Okay, to start the project, I installed a mod that lets me build up to 2,000 blocks, which is much more than anyone would ever need. So starting with the tower that we already made, the task at hand now is expanding a lot more downwards. The main structure the tower stands on seems to be this big cube with a window, so let's get to building. So right now I'm just guessing where everything goes, which is why you see some things move around. I'm using the new shelves and walls to smooth out the shape, which makes it look much better. I think I captured this window pretty well, although I made the top a bit more spiky, which was just a personal choice. So when it comes to the walls, the situation is actually a little weird. You see, this drawing is almost like a sketch, and the author used a lot of harsh lines to give the illusion of texture and depth, which I'm trying to replicate, but you can obviously guess that this is my first time, and I really don't know what I'm doing. Okay, now this doesn't even look that bad, and obviously I'm gonna add the details in later. So this little tower that I'm adding is actually a little weird because of the roof shape, which is, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was kind of hard to replicate that in Minecraft without it looking silly, but I think I somewhat did the job right. So now we're adding in these little boxes below the window, and this is actually so much harder than I expected. It's not even about the diagonal windows, they're fine, and the diagonal details are also not that bad, but just getting in the right dimensions and even just figuring out where they actually stand in relation to the rest of the build was such a struggle. So after some little detailing, I want to focus on something else. So I'm adding in the towers in the back, which will give the whole build a decent shape and it won't look as thin anymore. And now I'm back to the boxes, and this is actually starting to annoy me, because for some reason the shape still isn't quite right. Okay, so we've already made a bunch of progress. And comparing this to the original, you can actually see some similarities, right? It doesn't look too far off. And all that progress was done just by brute forcing it. I didn't actually study any of the references, I just looked at it and guessed where the things would go. But that's only because this was the easy part. So now it's study time. Okay, so I don't think I have ever done this before, but this town is so complicated. I actually think I will analyze this whole thing, because you can see the composition, right? You can see how it's built, you know, everything leans to the left, everything goes up. Kind of reminds me of that one city from Lord of the Rings, but I don't know what's going on, so I think I will actually just spend like half an hour painting in pathways. Ah, yes. All the gruesome work I do for you guys. You should better subscribe, you know, help me get to the 10k subs. Okay, so the city has 22 towers, and these roads look actually somewhat manageable, I'd say. Also, you can somewhat see the different layers of the city, but that's definitely going to be a thing that I'll have to eyeball. Next up, I want to start expanding the city downwards to the town area, starting with this cube right here, and then following this entire wall until we made a full circle. So yeah, as I said, I'm starting off with this weird octagon shape, and I actually just have to say how annoying it is. Like, every single part of this whole build is just weird. Like, octagons, weird circles, it's just weird. Anyways, after moving the build up another 100 blocks, we can now start building the wall. Now, right now, I'm literally just sketching it out with wool and sandstone, and it was actually quite efficient. I got most of it done in a couple of hours, and now we actually have an idea of what we're working with. Okay, that looks just a little bit confusing, but I'm actually starting to see a pretty decent resemblance with our reference. Okay, next up, I want to give this side of the wall a little more love by adding in the details that the artist drew in, although I'm starting to realize that we'll have to add in much more on our own, since yeah, yet again, this sketch style doesn't translate perfectly into Minecraft, and the building looks a little empty right now. Okay, so this is actually my favorite part, just because it looks the most normal. Like, this actually looks like a castle. And yeah, the recreation was pretty chill. I designed the one tower, then copied it over, and all I had to do now was detail the wall. I actually really like the way I did the fencing here with the two balconies sticking out, but on the other hand, one thing I want to redo are these white pillars on the bottom, because the white just sticks out way too much, so how about we do a different gradient? Okay, so now all we gotta do is finish up the stair, and I also added in this nice little design that I made myself. And there we go. That's the main structure done, at least for now. Okay, so these are all the parts that are at least semi-complete now. And after marking it out on the actual reference, I can see that there's still a much longer way to go. I thought we would like be halfway done, but it's not even close. Now, you may have also noticed that while I said I was going full circle, behind here is absolutely nothing, which is because I just don't get a lot to work with on the reference. I mean, I see everything from this perspective right there. And I can only see one side of the bag, right? So I don't actually see a lot. Which is why I think that's going to be the part that we'll tackle in the very last bit of this video. But for now, I want to stick to the somewhat easier stuff, which are these walls right here. And I mean, I only say somewhat because it's on a diagonal, which makes the whole thing annoying yet again. I mean, why does this whole build have to be on a diagonal? Anyways, this should be fairly easy as these walls are pretty much very bland, but I think that's why it'll actually be a little harder because I have to work a lot with texture and get some, you know, details myself in, as we can't just like copy it one-to-one as it is on the sketch because that would just look ugly. No front to the sketch though. So I'm starting by designing the towers, as these three in the front are basically the exact same model, so you can just copy them over and make some slight adjustments in scale and shape to have them be a little unique. So yeah, after designing that one tower, that's exactly what I did. I just copied it over and made one of the roofs a little shorter. Okay, so this is actually the annoying part. I had to texture every single side of the wall separately with like these little stripes, because that's basically what the author did on his painting, so I did the exact same thing. Next up, I took the already built up walls and changed their angle by hand to reuse them. And with that, the front walls are basically complete. Now, yet again, I didn't tackle the ones on the very right in the back because I don't got a good angle on that. But now I want to focus on expanding the main structure. As you can see, I've spawned in this giant red cube, which is supposed to be the structure right here. But it obviously still needs a lot more work, so let's get it. So I guess this is the very first building of the city. And I gotta say, it's quite refreshing finally being able to build something on a bit more of a smaller scale. That gives the whole build a little bit more life. But with that somewhat done, we're right back at building up giant walls for the castle. The amount of details put into our reference are definitely a huge help, as this building process is mostly just looking at what's depicted and how I can recreate it, although sometimes you don't get it fully right and have to put your own spin on it. So this is easily my favorite addition to the build yet, and I almost kind of like this colorful look with the wool, but obviously this is just a placeholder block. So yeah, we gotta replace all of that, and that's way easier said than done. So let's start. This might be the hardest part of the build. You see, there are just way too many options for colors that I could go for, and it's not even just that. There is so many ways to color this thing. Like, do I want to have the houses be more colorful than the main castle structure, you know, bright roofs and that type of stuff, or do we just stick to the initial theme and have these nether brick roofs with sandstone walls? We could also change up the walls and mix in some grades like that coral or normal stone. Yeah, no, this is just way too much. So let's try all of that in small bits, and the main thing is just to keep going, because that's the only way you make progress. Okay, so this replay looks kind of weird. I'm pretty sure I messed it up, so yeah, like the video. Anyways, I'm not just coloring the build, I'm also adding in the structures, and I think this might be our final stretch. I want to get the whole city done in this building session. Also added in this funny floor. And now it's back to building more towers. Now, I've tried making this roof really pointy. I don't know, it kind of looks funny, but also good. And the same thing goes for this weird tile floor. Okay, so now I guess it's actually time for the city. Last time we made a city that was pretty traumatic. Didn't quite like it. Yeah, it's just raining. But this time, I think I can do a little workaround by using the famous copy-paste method. Yes, we built up about 5 different houses, and then we just paste them everywhere. like literally everywhere. Now this ruins the immersion, but I want to make one thing clear. When it comes to from Pinterest to Minecraft, I'm trying to recreate a picture, not the actual world. Like I'm just a guy, you know. I'm not gonna like recreate the entire city and whatnot. Now I'm adding in this little bridge because why not? And with that, the structure is basically done. I mean, I don't know, the last part went by so much quicker than I thought. I thought it was gonna take ages, but I mean, yeah, I'm quite happy with this. This actually represents the castle pretty well. Now, obviously, we're still missing all of the landscape. Like, this is just floating there. Looks pretty silly. So, yeah, we still have quite a lot to tackle. Okay, so I just finished editing this shot, which took me like 20 minutes to make, like this little title card. And this is like the dumbest yet like coolest thing I've ever made. I don't know why. Like my whole body is inside of grass and there's this dumb little horse on the left. And this looks so epic, I don't know why. Anyways, getting back to the landscape, I'm starting off by creating this little slope, somewhat similar to the one in the picture, by using Axiom's path tool and increasing the radius of the selected area. After smoothing it out, I move on to the cliffs where I make use of the shape tool. I use cubes and cylinders as the main body and rotate them towards different angles to create movement and make them look more natural. In the bottom areas of the cliffs, I also use the permit tool to create a transition into the ground. Yet again, I go over it with the smoothing tool and then apply auto shade command to give it the actual color. Now all I have to focus on is the ground, the foliage, and I think this is a pretty good time to mention the fact that you can get the city and all of my other builds on my Patreon, so if you feel like supporting a small creator, check it out. Anyways, I used some of the trees from my forest video that I made a while ago to create this little forest, and there we go, the reference has been recreated. I want to thank y'all for watching, especially my Patreons, and if you've made it so far, like the video.